What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Kind of Funny Gamescast. I'm one of your hosts, Greg Miller, alongside the Pride of Long Island, Colin Moriarty.
Go Islanders. It's good to be here with you, Greg.
It's good to be here. We finally dropped the dead weight. We listened to the comments. Everybody hates Tim. Gone. That's all it took. Now, Tim's in LA. He'll be back soon. Thank you for putting up with it. I've never hosted a podcast before. I hope this goes well. I don't talk about games often. I don't know. You never know what's going to happen.
We'll be okay.
Colin.
Good luck.
Yes.
When we said we need somebody to fill in for Tim, we said we needed somebody as smart as him, who is as accomplished as much as him, who has traveled the world like him, and that's why I picked up Ryan Payton.
Right.
Ah, welcome.
Ryan Payton,
Thank
everybody. You are, if for some reason people didn't know you, preposterous. You're a big-time game developer. You work at Camouflage right now.
Trying to be.
You originally put out this game,
That's the dream.
Republic.
Republic.
Now, Republic Remastered just came out on Steam, Mac, Good Old Games, Humble. You can go get it all those places. Did I get them all?
Yeah, we're not on Mac Store yet, but
I thought you were saying earlier it was going to be on Mac.
No, and I corrected you earlier, but that's
Oh,
okay.
damn it.
man.
I just don't listen to you.
Greg doesn't listen.
Once you gave the initial information, I was like, well, that's all I
You
need
did
to know.
really good though. I think you got 3 out of the 4. So
Yeah, okay, good. That's not too shabby. That's not too shabby.
Real good.
that's not
Thank
bad.
you for coming to join us.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course, we're recording this after you were on Colin Reg Live. So if you remember that episode, this means we're still at the eve of launch. Republic
Correct.
Remastered.
Yes.
But by the time they hear it, it'll be out.
Exactly. You can go pick it up on all the places I just said, except for the one that doesn't exist yet, but
Yeah.
will one day.
Right. Well, we'll be on the Mac Store at some point.
Yeah, keep
Promise.
teasing.
And we were working on
We're working
on this lovely
Oh.
device that Greg and I haven't stopped talking about since it was the NGB.
If you're at home, he's
Ooh.
holding up a PlayStation, or if you're listening to MP3, he's talking about the PlayStation Vita.
Yeah, we made some exciting moves and hope that today it will
Hooking you up with the right
Oh
people.
man,
over
we'd
there.
love to have the game on the Vita.
I'm sure.
I think it would be
everybody
perfect on
wants a
Vita.
It would be perfect. It really would be.
Because it's a touch interface.
Exactly. Yeah. Republic. Give the elevator pitch for everybody who doesn't know.
Yeah, Republic is a game that we've been building for the last 3 years. It's a stealth action game mixed with a lot of hacking elements. It's a game about paranoia, government surveillance, privacy. It follows a protagonist named Hope who calls you on her stolen phone and asks you to help her escape from a secret totalitarian nation. So
Not too shabby. Colin, it sounded that setup was a lot like you.
Yeah.
Worried about this, worried about that.
Always worried about
the
something.
government.
Oh, are you like me, man? Just paranoid and being
Oh, yeah.
careful what you say online.
Yeah,
and
well, I think-
text and
Yeah, I'm not so careful
Search
what I
for-
say as much as I know they're listening. And every once in a while, like when my dad and I are always complaining about politics when I talk to him on the phone when I call back to Long Island, and every once in a while I'll say something and then I'll just be like, and I know the NSA is listening, so fuck you guys if you're listening to this right now.
Dirty bomb.
Just give all
Say
the
the keywords.
The keywords.
I think a lot of
Terrorist.
people do that. There's a study that we might reference in episode 4, episode 5 that journalists have. There's a survey that they actually change the way that they write or they think about. They're more careful about the way that they're writing, whether it's emails or articles, because they know that they're being listened to or could be listened to or could be showing up as like different like hot like these kind of keywords that could show up in some of this data that they're collecting. So it's not good. It's not a healthy thing.
We'll be fine. Well, it's not like
You sound like my dad. He's like, I got nothing to hide.
Yeah, that's the problem. That mentality is a big issue.
Basically, what you're saying is I don't care about my rights.
pretty much.
Oh, well,
Give me video games. I don't care at all about my rights.
Greg opens every phone conversation with his mom by saying the following words. His mom will be like, hello, and he'll be like, terrorist, Abu Ghraib, cocaine,
Freedom Tower.
Ukraine, Freedom Tower, 9/11.
Anyways, Mom, I was just calling to see if I had the right.
then you know that you have their attention.
Nick Scarpino's here. He's moving the light. Hey, Nick, how you doing? We don't put him on one Kind of Funny Gamescast. He breaks in, swings the light all around, changes it around.
Looking good, man.
You happy now, Pappy?
Well, it's a little bit. Thanks, but thank you.
We love Nick Scarpino so much. If you didn't know, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Kind of Funny Gamescast. The idea is simple. Each and every week, we come to you 3 best friends around this table, each bringing not a topic. I've never introed this one. This is why
you're
Tim.
introing exactly like our other show, which is
That's why
probably
Tim
not
just does the rigmarole and then stops.
Go to kindoffunny.com
Gamescast.
and you'll find all the
Exactly.
information you need.
Support us on Patreon. Thank you so much. Every week we bring this show to you about video games on Friday. You can get it on Patreon early, and if not, it's broken out topic by topic, day by day on YouTube until we post the entire thing for free on YouTube and MP3 services around the globe. So now here's the thing. We talk about topics.
Talk
on
to me
the show.
about it.
Ryan Payton. You gave a brief tease of this on Colin Reg Live, but you have to bring it up and tell everybody your official story. The topic number 1 is Hideo fucking Kojima. You know that I'm a huge Metal Gear fan.
I do.
I love Kojima-san. I love Peace Walker. It's the best game of last generation, my favorite game of all time. It's time to get into the fact that not only are you a Metal Gear fan, You worked on Metal Gear 4. You worked with this man in Japan. You were his right hand. You were like his ninja. He sent you out on missions.
Cyborg ninja.
Yeah, exactly. You were his Gray Fox. You were his Meryl. I want to know everything about Hideo Kojima.
What do you want to know, man?
We'll start for everybody, to bring everybody who didn't catch Colin or Greg live. Let's start with how you got to work with him, how you started in this industry, how you became a game developer.
So you guys can tell me if I'm going a little bit too long, but
Okay.
I'll tell a little bit more.
Please, this show is literally every show we do is a walk. Don't worry.
All right, fair enough. Because it depends on how detailed you want to get, but the story is interesting, and I'm not tired of it yet. So
all it did was change your life.
yeah, it did. It really did. So graduated from college with a degree in foreign languages and business, and I joined this thing called the JET program. Are you one of you gentlemen familiar with it?
No.
I don't know the JET program.
The JET program is an official sponsored Japanese government program to bring native English-speaking college graduates to Japan to help teach their junior high and high school students in public school. And so, if you're a Japanese kid growing up, you most of the time you would have some guy or some gal from Australia or America, England, there to be like a native speaker to help you with your speaking.
Sure.
Right? So I was one of those guys. I was at a high school in rural Japan, didn't know what I was doing there. They sent me there because I could speak Japanese. And yeah, so I was just kind of honestly miserable. I thought I was going to, because you have that vision of, growing up of Japan, like it's like Blade Runner, and I'm going to be eating like ramen and, playing video games all the time, and everybody's going to be I'm going to be talking to robots, and it's going to be amazing.
So you're envisioning Akihabara.
Yeah,
you're just living
that's
in
what
Akihabara.
That's kind of where I expected I was going to be living, and then they were driving me out to where I was going to be living, which was in this prefecture called Hyogo, which doesn't have a lot of people. And yeah, it was like it was 8 hours from anywhere, basically. I know it's a small country, but it's very densely packed, right? And so I was out there in the country, not really knowing what I was doing. Cried my first night, and but thankfully I had this freelance gig with Ziff Davis. So I was writing for Xbox Nation magazine, OneUp.com, EGM. Ended up writing for Wired and Japan Times. So I was able to kind of subsist or kind of regain my sanity by teaching English, which I wasn't really a big fan of, but writing about video games and covering the Xbox Japan beat.
Ooh.
This is the sexiest
It was
beat
popping
you can
off,
get, man.
man.
This is the best one. I fought really hard for that one. So, yeah, I was traveling on the weekends to Tokyo. The guys I was working with had never been to Tokyo, and I was going there every weekend because I just couldn't stay in this backwater town. It was nice people, but it just wasn't for me. So anyway, I was covering the beat. I was a freelance writer, and I decided.
Were you living in like Inaba? Was this Persona 4? This is Persona 4.
Yes.
This is Persona 4.
No, it was way more Inaka countryside than the Persona 4 town.
Oh wow.
It's primarily a fishing village,
yeah.
and this is very common in Japan for any kind of most of like the suburbs or outside of the big cities. Is that when the kids grow up and they graduate, they go to the big cities and they never come back. So it's mostly old people.
Gotcha.
And the high school was kind of like a Persona high school in the fact that it was more or less haunted because it's a huge high school that they built in like the 60s or the 50s. And there's nobody having kids outside, and so or outside the big cities. So there's like 200 kids for this school that can house 2,000.
Jeez.
And it's just really scary and haunting, and nobody's my age, and it was weird. It was a weird place to spend 2 years of my life, but I did again kind of like was able to kind of connect with the thing I really love by writing about video games, and flew on my own dime to E3 2005. To cover E3 and try to get some money just doing some freelance articles. And I was covering the DS beat. So I think I was looking at like Beautiful Joe DS and Okami DS. Maybe, I can't remember some of the games. But I got a call from my editor, James Milkey, who said in a panic that he had overslept or he double booked or something, but he couldn't make his appointment to visit or to meet and interview Hideo Kojima for Metal Gear Solid 3 Subsistence. And as a huge fan, I just played Metal Gear Solid 3. I realized when I played it a month or two before that was my favorite video game of all time. Wow. And you can imagine my excitement to be able to run over there and interview this guy. So it was me and Scooter and a couple other journalists at the interviewing Hideo, and he noticed that I think in the interview that I understood his answers before he was being translated by his amazing translator Aki Saito. And after the interview, I was talking to the translator in Japanese. Hideo went to the restroom. When he came back, he overheard us speaking in Japanese, and I had a Southern dialect because I was living in the South.
Sure.
And he's like, "Why do you speak in a Southern Japanese dialect? This is so weird." And he's like, and then it kind of cut to the chase, like, "Hey, are you interested in interviewing?" I have an open position for a bilingual, guy. Do you want to come in and interview at our offices in Tokyo? And I said, sure, of course.
All right, so here's the timeout I want right now. When you're interviewing him at E3,
Yeah.
did you think about speaking to him in Japanese?
I did not, and the reason is because you guys have seen this. You guys are in the press. That there are guys who are in the press to be in the press, and there are other guys like turncoats like me who are in the press because I want to be a video game developer. And a lot of these guys will. I didn't want to be that guy to you interview them for an article, and then afterwards, like, hey, if you ever need somebody for your company,
Gotcha.
I just think that's not right. It's
See,
not moral.
every time I've ever spoken to him, because he's such a hero to me, right. I always think about, man, like, if only I would have listened to Dan Shu and gotten a minor in Japanese when I was going into college. Because how baller would it be to just sit down and do like an E3 like couch demo or whatever, and we just have this Japanese conversation. I'm translating for myself. I'm telling what's happening. I'm explaining.
That's
God,
as baller as
awesome,
it gets. That's
right?
as baller as it gets.
Yeah.
Well, I frankly think it shows a level of modesty for you to, you're fluent in Japanese and regardless of your want to get a job or whatever, I don't necessarily think he would have read into that if you just spoke to him in Japanese, and I think it shows actually quite a modesty.
Sure, in a group interview especially, would have cut out like all these other American.
Yeah, and there's something what I thought you were going to say, which was interesting, and maybe it was in your mind or not, was I only went to Japan a couple times, but have dealt with a lot of Japanese developers, especially as you're on the PlayStation beat. It's just it's a culture of honor and respect, and I would, if I spoke Japanese and I know that this guy came from Japan simply to translate, I would have actually felt bad. And still
that's true too. That's a good point.
That's what I thought you might.
You don't want to be that guy, and those guys do exist. You guys have probably seen them, and they there's like a classic one, like this Nintendo Dojo guy from early 2000s, early 90s, like during like a Nintendo presser at E3. In front of all these, like, it was a time when at the Nintendo presser they would take Q&A at the end. This is way back in the day. And this guy was like, Miyamoto-sama, blah, 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 in Japanese in front of everybody. And they're like, okay, either you're showing off, you're trying to be cool, but none of this works. And I didn't want to be that guy.
Sure.
So, but yeah, it really all worked out. So where were we?
So he had just asked you to come to Tokyo to interview.
He did, right. Gotcha. So obviously I'm super excited. And I on my own dime, go up there multiple times. It's about a $300-$400 round trip from where I was living to do these interviews. And
are you flying? Is that how you're getting in?
I'm flying, and sometimes I'm taking the bullet train.
Okay.
But it's a day-long trek for me. And at the time, I had quit my English teaching job. I was studying more Japanese in Osaka at the time and running out of money. And interviewed, and I got the word, and it was, you didn't make it. We're interviewing about 25 people, and you didn't make the cut.
Damn.
So that sucked. So I packed my bags. I was like, I'm done. I don't want to live in Japan anymore. And I moved back to Washington State with my folks. Went to Costco, bought World of Warcraft box set and a 24-pack of Mountain Dew.
Yeah, you did. Fuck yeah, Ryan Payton, you're an OG.
And I decided I'm done. I'm just gonna.
I'm hanging up the dreams.
Yeah, this is it. I'm never gonna get in the game industry because it was too much. Like I was thinking about a similar kind of situation earlier about trying to find the right analogy for it, but I really can't. It's just basically you never think about it, but then when it's presented to you and you're like, yeah, I want that, and then it's taken away from you.
Sure.
It's that to be crestfallen like that was really tough. So fast forward about a week or two, I'm playing World of Warcraft, just deciding this is gonna be my life, and living with my parents like a baller.
Yeah. And
I get an email from Konami. Turns out you actually did pass. You actually are the selected chosen one. We got it wrong. Can you start in a month? Because TGS is coming up.
Yeah.
So my immediate response is, "Oh, this is great. This is great news. You can pay for my trip back, right? And my move." They're like, "Hell no."
Yeah.
So I had just bought a car. So sold the car, used the money to pay for the flight, moved all my stuff back to Japan.
Threw away WoW.
Yeah, threw away WoW.
Like,
never went back.
Nice.
And never had time. And got started just before TGS 2005, which when I got in the office the first day, they had ushered me into the editing room, and Hideo wanted to ask me like what I thought of the trailer, which you guys will probably remember. It was the first gameplay trailer, first like visual trailer of MGS4 when Snake is behind that wall, and you can see like the gecko and the soldiers behind him kind of going, and you saw the new Otacon like MK2 robot and stuff like that. So, and I thought it looked stunning. So I was like, this is amazing, and I can't believe I'm here. Like that was really the early days, like the very beginning of that project. So
let me ask you a quick question before we move on with more of the stories. This is actually very fascinating.
This is awesome. You are awesome, Ryan.
Yeah. This is a very, very fascinating story. One thing I want to know is, so Konami made this mistake, or Kojima made a mistake, or his people made a mistake where they selected you and then they didn't tell you. Do you know the story behind that? Was it that they're like shit, we
no, you told the wrong guy.
We messed up clerically, or did they change their mind?
This
and then
bumbling
act like
moron shows up, and they're like, "Oh, this is not the guy we wanted."
Did you ever hear anything about that?
That's a good question. I don't know. I should know. I don't know if I ever asked or if I forgot. But I don't think there was 25 people. There really aren't 25 people that are qualified to do the thing that, they set me up to do. So, yeah, but I know some friends that did interview and didn't get the gig. And I don't know what it was. I mean, I remember being interviewed by Hideo, and he was asking me about my favorite movies and books. And it was true. I was talking about Blade Runner and stuff that he obviously likes Blade Runner if you look at Snatcher. And there was some stuff that resonated there, but I think there was some concerns about my Japanese. It wasn't awesome. I mean, I major in Japanese. I was writing a lot in Japanese. I was writing for a Famitsu magazine, but it wasn't perfect.
Sure.
So I think that they might have been looking for that perfect candidate, but who more or less doesn't exist, which is perfect English, perfect Japanese, can do business, marketing, all that kind of stuff. Like, those people are really, really hard to find. And I think they just decided to maybe just train me up to the level that I needed to be, which, I think it ended up working out okay. Well, then I left 3 years later, so maybe
it bit him in the ass big time. But no. So what is the role they're bringing you on for?
So what they brought me on for in Japanese was called Kaigai Tanto, which Kaigai Tanto means, you guys are very familiar with. Kaigai is like is foreign or outside or international, and then Tanto is kind of like in charge of or manager. So it was kind of in English. I gave myself the title international manager, and then they're like, no, you're not a manager. You're not managing anything. So I was like international coordinator, which basically meant that every day I was emailing back and forth between Konami America, Konami Europe, and then Kojima Productions, coordinating about, hey, E3's coming up or TGS is coming up. Here's the press that's going to be showing up. Here's the box art. Do you guys like the box art? I get the box art from Europe and America. I take it and put it in front of Hideo. So it's kind of like a messenger, back and forth, just trying to coordinate with the different branches.
So what was that like then? Like to be in there, especially with Metal Gear 4. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you want to talk about pressure. Like this is the one that was going to tie up all the loose ends and do all these different things.
True, but when I joined, it was very early. So when I joined, it was all about Metal Gear Acid 2. It was all about there was one other game we were promoting really heavily. Well, there was the digital graphic novel, and there was one more game. Oh, it was Metal Gear Solid 3 Subsistence.
Oh, okay.
I had interviewed Hideo for that on the press side, but then I had to help ship it.
Yeah.
So that was pretty exciting. So when I joined, it was most of the team was actually not on MGS4. They were on Subsistence because if you guys remember, they added the 3D camera, and there was a lot of work to be done because players could now move the camera anywhere, and they had a bunch of fake stuff, or they didn't build out the jungle in areas because they knew that you couldn't see them previous.
Yeah.
Now, because you have this 3D camera, they had to actually build out the jungle more. So that was really interesting to watch that happen. But yeah, I was really just on the PR marketing side, working with Mark Franklin and those guys.
Nice. And so then they start. So many questions.
So I know your question, which is how did you get from, Paperboy to actually working on the game?
Yeah, because your title on 4 was producer, right?
Yes.
Isn't that it?
Yeah. So the big turning point for me was, about a year in, we had shipped Acid 2, and Acid 2 did not sell very well. But the original Acid did sell really, really well, and it was because of what Hideo would call the launch magic. It was a launch title for the PSP, as you guys remember.
Yeah.
And I think there were some kind of false positives related to that franchise. So when Acid 2 didn't sell very well, everybody was basically saying, hey, look, we mistakenly bought Acid 1 because we thought it was a real Metal Gear game. And now we know that the Acid series is not what we want. We want a real Metal Gear game for PSP. And then enter Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops, which we ended up calling it.
Right.
Which I have a really good story about it. And I'm on that cusp of being able to say things without getting in trouble because it's been a while.
You're not allowed to say you have a really good story about it and not tell the story.
Well, I don't want him to get in trouble.
Me and Kojima are friends. It's cool. He follows me on Twitter. I gave him that painting at E3. I don't. If you can't, don't get yourself.
I won't go into details, but let's just say that just the name of it was a lot of work to get that through because if you might have noticed, you might not have noticed, but that in America and in Europe, that no PSP game had the title portable in it.
Interesting.
And it was for some reasons, and not like any kind of conspiratorial reasons or whatever, but it was just kind of a Sony thing. And we had to go really, really high up to get that title because we wanted Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops. Why? Because we wanted the acronym to be like an NPO. This is very Metal Gear kind of thinking.
Yeah.
So we went for MPO, and we had to. And Hideo asked me to come up with a bunch of acronyms that could work for an MPO, a Metal Gear PO. What could that be? And the best name we could come up with was Portable Ops. And because it had the name Portable in there, Sony didn't really like that.
Sure.
So we had to go get some permissions.
That's weird.
It's kind of a weird inside baseball story.
And I'm trying to think of like PSP games with portable, and you're right, I can't actually.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Now in Japan they do like Monster Hunter second portable, things like that, but in the States they were trying to avoid that for whatever reason. So
Because portables were so poo-pooed.
Yeah.
This handheld game, this isn't a real game.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe that was the thinking. I'm not quite sure. So
just like when we used to have to this is pretty good for a digital game.
Yeah,
like those days.
Oh,
those days. Remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
Oh man, Shadow Complex
days-
is really
those
good
days
for
still
an
exist,
but
arcade
for a
game.
download game.
Unfortunately, that's
I
still
know.
exists.
Indie Station.
Yeah,
That's
whatever.
different. Now you can be a download as long as you are backed by a giant corporation. Everybody's happy with it. It's when it gets out there. So anyway, sorry.
Or be Minecraft.
How or be Minecraft. We're
So
still on the road to you becoming producer.
We're still on the road to me becoming producer. So Portable Ops was my big break, and the reason being is that now the full team. 90% of the team is on Metal Gear Solid 4. It's a huge game, as you guys know, and but the Acid team is now evolved into the Portable Ops team, and they don't have a ton of support. And the game needs to be shipped within a year. They had a year to make that game, and that game's really good.
Yeah, I loved it.
And the producer on that was really awesome. Like the executive producer name was Okamura-san, and he was asking me for a lot of help. Basically, he was like, "Hey, beyond what I was normally used to doing." And so I would fly to Australia to meet with Ashley Wood, who did all the cinematic art, like the thing on your wall right behind you. He like Ashley Wood, did that, and so I was helping a lot more with my production. And what ended up happening was, again, without getting into too much detail to get me in trouble, but the director was having some trouble, and he was working tons of hours, and he just couldn't get full coverage onto the game. And so myself and the audio director, his name is Akihito Honda. He and I were young, crazy. I had moved right next to the studio in Roppongi.
Nice.
That's really expensive, really stupid. But I just wanted to be at work all the time. I was living my dream. And we would, after my real job was done about 10 p.m., Honda and I would just play the latest build of Portable Ops every night. We'd play till about 2 or 3 in the morning. And you guys know it's a really good, addicting game.
Yeah.
But lots of problems we saw, and we just wrote up reports, and I would write them up every morning, or actually before I went to bed. And so when the development team came in the next morning, they had a bunch of feedback. And I just and they saw like, oh, this boss battle's broken, this boss battle's cheap, or this place looks this area of the map looks really bad, or whatever. And I wasn't. It was just like to help out. It wasn't like my game or whatever. And Okamura came to me about for a week after I kept doing this. And he's like, keep it going. Just keep doing that. Just keep doing that. I'm like, all right. So for about 3 or 4 months, I just kept doing it, playing it every night. And basically kind of doing what a real game director should do, but we always get too busy to do that. I don't do this on Republic, and I should.
Yeah.
So anyway, we get close to ship. It's supposed to come out before Thanksgiving because that's the sales period, the retail sales period, and the game's just not ready. So I get permission to fly to America and beg for forgiveness and ask them to delay Portable Ops by a month into December. And they said, like, nobody ships in December. I'm like, that's my secret. It's like that's now it is like I love shipping in December because we've done it with Republic, and we might do it again with episode 5. We'll see. But it's you get like a lot of press coverage there because there's all the games have already come out. It's quiet. Yeah. And they let us do it, and the game was a huge hit. I think it might even got a 10 from IGN. Portable Ops.
No way.
I might be wrong about this.
I think you're wrong.
I might be wrong about this, but the game reviewed really, really well and sold really well.
I remember that me and it was Jeff and I that were there, and we were playing it on PSP. We loved it.
And we I don't want to take credit for it because I came in, last 3 or 4 months of it, but we laid the foundation for what ended up becoming Peace Walker. A lot of that Pokemon stuff, a lot of that Jagged Alliance stuff.
That was the whole thing of these bite-sized missions to go out and play, come back,
recruit those soldiers, use Wi-Fi. All that stuff came from that Portable Ops team.
Oh, and I'm way wrong. I wasn't even working at IGN when this came out. 9.0.
9.0.
Yeah, I must be. They did a second one, didn't they? Or like there was like a
an MGS4 got
a
a 10.
Portable Ops Plus, which is not good. That was really bad. Sorry, Colin, what was your question?
I was just gonna say MGS4 got a 10, so you might be.
Maybe I was thinking about that, but yeah, 9 out of 10. Yeah, it was
good.
9, but that was
9's
real
amazing.
good.
Yeah.
Really good. So it was like a Christmas party or something, launch party, and Hideo came over to me. I was just kind of sitting by myself, and he's like, "You did really good. You did really good on Portable Ops. I heard from the team." I was like, "Oh, thanks, man." And he's like, "I want you to do that on MGS4." Okay. So Monday morning, that next week, in front of 200 people, he's like, "Ryan, I want you to come in front of the group." I'm like, "Okay." Me, 26 years old or whatever, and he's like, "We're promoting Ryan. He's gonna be in charge of playing the game and giving feedback, and he's gonna help us sell this game in the States, basically, and he's gonna help us fix our controls, make sure the boss battles are tuned properly, help out with the script and all that kind of stuff." And yeah, it was
this is all news to you at the moment.
Oh yeah, this is a dream.
You're
come
like
true.
your eyes are just getting as big as saucers, I imagine.
I was like, okay, well, I'll do it.
Was there at any point did you pull him aside and be like, I don't know about this, man. I'm just
No,
a
man,
kid."
I knew I could do it. I knew I could do it. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I wonder if when he was talking about specifically tuning the boss battles and stuff, if you kind of tweaking the story, if originally you were like, how can we get Fat Man back into this?
Yeah, you gotta get
That
Fat
was
Man
my
back
first
in there.
thought,
right.
I think. Actually, I think I might have said that in front of the team.
Right.
I was like, my first move as a new producer on this title is we're bringing back Fat Man.
I understand
And
we
you
like this
heard-
Fatales idea,
yeah.
but no.
And you heard just one person in the United States scream yes, and that was me.
Somehow you had a telekinetic link.
You go over there, go model those rollerblades. You over there, go model that glass of wine.
I was gonna say, I need drinks with a little
And we
thing.
also need the straw. Who's
Yeah.
gonna do the straw?
Yeah. Get all up in that.
Wow,
Get
this
all
is
in.
a-
it.
It's really an amazing story.
Yeah, no, totally.
So I guess what you wanted to get into, Greg, because we
No,
both,
this is great. This is fine. This
But
is
I'm curious because I think we can really get into some meat here now
Yeah.
because we're both Metal Gear fans, but I kind of fell off with the
Gear?
series after Metal Gear Solid 2, and you are still a huge Metal Gear fan.
Yeah.
And obviously Kojima has this aura and mystique in the West and has forever.
Right.
Like everyone, like
First off,
I remember the first time we met him
Yeah.
together. I was like,
In the
it was
E3
like
line.
yeah, it was like
Yeah,
one of the
yeah.
first times I meet famous people all the time. Inafune is my favorite developer, and there's only him and like only I select others where I was like, oh my god, like
Yeah.
I'm meeting like
An idol
royalty,
hero.
basically.
Yeah.
And so I was just curious, like, so what is the man like? I mean, that's what I kind
Yeah,
of
well, yeah. I mean, there's so many questions about him. Like, is he a vampire? Why doesn't he age? Why does this man not age? It's
I don't
insane.
know. Well, him and Fumito Ueda must be going to the same clinic. You know? That guy doesn't age either. Yeah, it's just this Japanese thing, man. Yeah, you guys see it all the time. Like, Japanese movie stars. They just their life expectancy is a lot longer than we have here in the States and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So it's diet, in Japan, and he eats, he tweets, he makes sure that
Yeah,
what
oh,
he's
yeah.
eating every
Oh,
day,
yeah.
right? So they eat really healthy, and he started to really exercise during MGS4. He got really fit and got really muscular.
Yeah.
If you look at pictures of him MGS3 era versus MGS4 era, you can see he got really ripped.
Yeah.
So
It's got to get out there.
and he was putting a lot of pressure on me and Ken, who was Imaizumi, who was my boss and was really supportive during that whole time. And he was like, "You guys got to go to the gym and do this stuff." And I was like, "Dude, I'm working on the game, man. Got to make this game good."
So is he like? At what point you're a fan too? You were blown
Right.
away to go interview him. At what point does that start to wear off? And does he ever just become your boss, one of the guys, kind of thing? Or
I honestly remember in 2005 when I joined, talking to friends about how, as much as a fan of I am of Metal Gear Solid 3, I wasn't necessarily, and I don't want this to come across the wrong way, but I wasn't necessarily a Hideo Kojima fan.
okay,
And I think that was really important joining the company. And I don't think he wanted that, right? And maybe he saw that in me. I don't really know. But I was just as much I was there for him and appreciated the opportunity. And he really did help me, and especially in those early years, getting involved in, the company and everything. But I was there for him. I was there for the franchise. I was there for the fans. And I was there for the team. And I really started to learn over time if there was one big takeaway. And I remember interviewing with Microsoft talking about this, is that for me, it wasn't like I was fighting for him. I was actually fighting for the other 199 guys who are working
Sure.
on the game, who are killing themselves, who don't get the same recognition that he gets. And I just, some of my best friends are still the guys at Konami. And every time I go back to Japan, I just hang out with those guys because you look at the game, they're just so talented, right?
Yeah.
And again, I don't want to take anything away from him, but that group he's got is unbelievable.
oh sure, yeah.
I mean, that's what I was going to ask, because that's a really great question in the sense, or just a statement in the sense that there are certain visionaries that you think that we know something about game development, obviously, where it's like you don't think Miyamoto makes the game by himself, you don't think Inafune made
Right.
the game Mega Man by himself, you don't think,
Yeah.
But what is that dynamic like when you have a outward visionary style person leading a project where that no one, I don't want to say no one, but 90% of your audience really doesn't give a fuck about anyone
Right.
but Kojima, and thinks that every decision is his, and he wrote the whole story, and he designed every character and did all these things. Like, what is it like working in a studio? Like, what's the morale like? Because it seems like in Japan it might be a little more of a again, like an honor-based thing where it's like that's not a problem for them, as opposed to the United States. You actually see less of that here, because I think that might be a problem.
Sure.
Like a Cliffy B style person who's like,
Right.
Gears of War is Cliffy B, but there's 200 people that work on that game.
Yeah.
So like, what is that
No,
like?
I think
Like,
that's a really good question. That's something that I was really conscious of while I was there, and I tried to make to the best of my effort when I was doing more PR promotion types of things. With, for example, the making of video of Metal Gear Solid 4 almost killed me. It was so hard, and it was like this 2-hour Blu-ray. And I have a crazy story around that we probably don't have time for, but
You
trying
got
to get
all the time in the world.
I don't know. I gotta be out of my cutoff time. But I tried my best to try to get the team on camera and talking about what they did. And these guys have been working there for 20 years, that a lot of people aren't familiar with. The same thing, like you were talking about Miyamoto, like the same thing goes for Nintendo. Like they're starting to do that with Iwata Asks, like bringing some of the old guard on there. But yeah, there's just so many people behind the scenes. And again, to answer your other question about like, is there like resentment for that within Konami? I don't think there is. I think they're just used to that, and I think they're okay with that. A lot of these guys, I don't think are there for the promotion.
Sure.
And if they are, they're in it for the wrong reasons, quite frankly. Yeah, as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, in terms of like the aura around him, like I guess I just never really had that. Like,
right.
I had a lot of respect for him, and he has amazing ideas, and I just have so much respect for like the stories that he's created over the years. And MGS1 was a seminal game for me. That was the game that made me want to join the game industry more than anything else. And so I just it was fun working with him, but I just approached him like another guy.
Nice.
Really, that was really important for me.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, it's one of those that you think about these legends in the game industry, and I always think of Jack Tretton. And I know when he was at Sony PlayStation, he wasn't hanging out with people in the cafeteria chilling out. He had his own office. He's off over there. He said hi in the elevator, I think, once in a while.
There you go.
That's about it.
Yeah.
So then, Metal Gear Solid 4? How long are you? What you get to this producer role? How long are you actually? What's your timetable on that? Like, how much time do you have in that
I guess
role?
I have about this. I must have about a year and a half.
Okay.
So coordinating, I was doing my producer stuff still.
Oh wow! Really?
And then doing the game stuff and also game production, not only just design but the production. So coordinating trips to Morocco. Coordinating trips to Peru for all these different like research trips and to Prague, and so getting involved in that was really fun, but tons of work. And and as you know, I'm having bad flashbacks now about all the game conventions that we did.
Oh yeah,
because Metal Gear is always there. There's always a new trailer, and it never feels like you're making a real game. And I start to see the benefits of it though. It's that the team. One of the things I learned about the production of Metal Gear. I don't recommend this, by the way. It's a very expensive, costly way of doing this. But the game, I think the team more or less learned what the game was. Like the vision of the game came from the trailers.
Really?
So that it's like a vertical slice of a vertical slice in a sense. Like, now I see where things are going. There's no like documentation being thrown around. There's no huge presentations that are like, okay guys, this is the vision, here's the 5 pillars of the game. There's none of that crap. It's more like they're all involved in like the production. They're making their small part of the trailer, then they see the whole thing together along with the rest of the world, and like, okay, that's what I'm building. It's a really interesting approach, and they really push things forward in that kind of these kind of piecemeal little releases, and then they have to buckle down. I think they have to realize, and this has happened to me having worked on a number of different projects there at Konami, is that at some point it comes down to, okay, we have to make a video game now. It's not just trailers. It's not just cinematics.
It's funny. I mean, that made me laugh in the sense that when you feel like you're working on a Metal Gear game and you never think it's real, or like you're not making a game, and it is true in the sense that like just like being on the outside, like when the Phantom Pain was revealed, everyone was so excited, and I was like,
what the hell is it?
Well, not even that. I was just like, I don't know. Like,
Some
is this
kind
game
of fire
even? Is this
mental
even
whale?
First of all, it's just like so. It's so weird where it's like I don't know. I'll be excited about when it's here on my PlayStation. But until then, because you just don't know how long it's gonna take and what the hell is gonna happen. And
right, and you can rightfully assume that they haven't figured out all that stuff too. Right. That Phantom Pain trailer, by the way, is I think the best Metal Gear trailer of all time. I would argue.
The initial reveal?
Yeah, the initial one.
The reveal was cool, and I think it was the same. Was it the same? This I think gives us some insight because I think it was the same year that The Last of Us was revealed.
Yeah,
right.
VGA,
and then The Last of Us had come out, or like 2 years ago, and Metal Gear obviously will come out this year. But it's what was so funny to me about that. What I'll never forget about that particular trailer is that it took literally 5 minutes for someone to be like, it's Metal Gear Solid 5, and the logo fits.
Put the V in there,
and I was like,
stuff.
And I remember seeing that on GAF for the first time and being like,
no way.
There's no way. Like, that's brilliant, but there's no way that you figured that out and that's a real thing. And I'm like, no, that really is.
Well, then you go on GAF and you see that there's pictures of Hideo wearing a Moby Dick Studio t-shirt.
Yeah.
And you're like, why would he have that? It just got really silly really quickly.
I mean, he's a funny dude in that respect. I think like where it's just like
he plays with it. He understands.
He's
what
basically
the
screwing with everyone. And I think that's like not in a mean way, but it's just like you have to always look at him and study him and be like, what is it about you that is telling me something about the project? Or,
right.
I think it's fun.
He has a lot of fun with that, and like the other,
it's cool.
The way that he promotes is really interesting. Right, really guerrilla style. Right.
Yeah. Why doesn't he speak English? I know he understands English. He laughs at my jokes when I'm interviewing him before they get translated in the same way you. And I'm like, just talk to me. Let me in.
He, just like a lot of Japanese guys, he probably has a lot more confidence in his listening ability.
Okay. That's fine, I guess.
Yeah.
I just want to talk to you today.
Well, you got Babelfish, man.
Yeah. We'll sit there and go back and forth through that. So then, you stay through the ship before? When do you leave? That's what I'm not familiar with this part of your career in terms of projects.
So I left a couple months after MGS4 was released.
And was it just time for a new challenge to get back to America? What was it?
A little bit. There was a couple of things. One was so the game shipped on June 12th, 2008, and I was the team had shipped. I want to say that we started around end of April, early May, and the team was going on a long break. And the way that Konami does it's overtime pay or whatever. So they don't pay; they just give you more time off in exchange for the amount of time that you did overtime. And I had accrued about 4 months of vacation. So
you were working just a bit on this game.
Yeah, I was, but my vacation didn't start until after ship because everybody certed and everybody was fine. But then we had this making of video, so I was spending all this time in Vancouver, Canada. And working on this big project with Victor Lucas and those guys up there.
Oh, yeah, EP.
Yeah, and EP Daily. And those guys did a fantastic job on that. Really, really, really good making of video. However, this is one of the stories I didn't want to tell because of time, but I'll give a sneak preview. Is that my goal with that was that I was going to archive with Victor. He wanted to do this too. We were going to archive all the old videotapes that I had found like in the basement of Kojima Productions,
oh my God.
of the past 20 years.
Wow.
We were going to capture the entire thing, put it all to XDK, or not XDK, it was to XD Cam.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're gonna make the most comprehensive making of documented Metal Gear you've ever seen, and I think we really did pull it off. But I had all these tapes. I only had these are just the originals. I didn't even have time to copy them. I didn't even know how to copy a lot of these different formats. We had everything. We had every kind of video format you can possibly imagine. And so I put them all in this big box, and I take it with me to Vancouver, Canada, because we're gonna go capture all these things. And I'm jet lagged, and I'm at YVR, in Vancouver International Airport, waiting for my bags in this box of all these tapes. And I start seeing the tapes.
Oh my God.
I start seeing the tapes.
Oh my God.
But it's not in the box. On this carousel.
Oh no.
Hundreds of tapes just coming off of that little that machine, right?
Yeah,
conveyor belt. And then I see the box completely ripped open.
Oh Jesus.
I'm like, and I start seeing tapes fall down in between the cracks between the different conveyor belts.
Where the metal things are.
I'm like, this is like all the company history, and I've completely screwed it over. So I
gotta quit.
I was thinking that was it. There was 2 moments where I thought I was it. There was that, and then I thought I had lost the motion capture video that we had, and I thought I lost it in Los Angeles on a hard drive. I had to bring it to VO with me, and I couldn't find it.
Yeah.
And I thought I left it in the rental car. And I kept calling them secretly. I never told Ken or Hideo or anybody because I was like, and I worried every single morning I woke up. I thought it was going to be on YouTube. I thought all the cinematics, like the motion capture versions, were going to be on YouTube like a year before release. And I kept calling, and I spent hundreds of dollars of my own money on like international phone calls to Enterprise Rental Car, asking about this one rental car. Can you search it again? Can you search it again? I'm sure it's in there. And then I was so worried. Went back to LA, and I got to the recording studio, which is now called Formosa. And they're like, "Oh, you left this hard drive here. I forgot to tell you." And I was like, "Oh, thank God." So I thought I was going to get fired over that. But the tapes, though, so this shows how like a terrible employee I was. But so these tapes, I call Victor. I'm like, I'm going to be very, very late, if at all. I might not even show up. And I started just collecting them all. And some guys started helping me. I started lining them up. There was hundreds of tapes. And I had like a spreadsheet of like each. I had them each numbered too already. So I'm like, okay, here's 1, here's 3, here's 7, here's 15. I'm like, oh crap, where's everything else? Lined them all up. It took me hours and hours and hours and hours. Some guy just like who worked there at the airport kept going underneath and trying to like pick more. And some of these tapes are broken. All the like ribbons coming out. I'm like, oh my God. I can't believe it, man. 3 of them were totally destroyed, and all 3 of those I had backups for. Everything, all the originals were fine. I was able to get them to Victor's place and capture all of them. I was so lucky. Again, never told that story to Ken or Hideo, but yeah, man, those were like 2 moments. And so maybe that was why I wanted to leave, because I was just so stressed out, and getting that Blu-ray out in time was so stressful, and things just weren't really working out with the video capture equipment and all that stuff. So anyway, go on vacation. We shipped. The game had amazing response. You guys hear this all the time, but you really lose perspective when you're working on a game for that long, if the game's good or not. I'm just convinced the game's going to suck. And I thought we were going to get really hammered, and we did a little bit, but not to the degree that I thought we would in terms of the game's length.
Yeah,
it's a topic of relevance right now, and cinematics versus gameplay and stuff. But people didn't seem to care; they just loved the game, and I was so happy about that. I went home, loaded up. I think it was like Halo 3 and 2 Human. I was playing that. I remember that around that time, and But before that, right when I got home, within the first week, I started, spending time with my folks. My mom was getting these weird calls from this hospital, and she then told the whole family that she was diagnosed with breast cancer and that it didn't look good. And my dad looked at me and said, "You're not going back to Japan. You need to stay here and take care of your mom. And your brother's going to school, and I have to work." So I'm like, all right, this is the time. I thought I was already thinking about my next move, and they were talking about a PSP Metal Gear, which ended up being Peace Walker.
Yeah.
And I thought that would be a lot of fun, but I don't know, the timing felt right. There's just no way.
Sure, you can't.
When you think that, and thankfully mom's okay now, but when you think you're going to lose your parents like that, and there was just no way.
Sure.
So I went back to Japan. I talked to Hideo. He was very supportive of the idea. And I left. And then the moment, like within 10 minutes of that news hitting the internet that I was leaving Konami, I got an email from a Microsoft recruiter. And they said, "We're looking for a director on a Halo game." So I went up there, interviewed. It was a local job, so I can be with my folks. And I got the gig.
Nice. Your story's awesome.
Yeah, it's
thanks. Hopefully it's interesting to your guys' listeners.
We should have him. We should next time we have you back. We should now hear about Halo. We don't have time for it now,
exactly,
but then your whole
exactly,
experience at Microsoft and with Xbox and Halo.
That stuff is actually a little bit harder to talk about
because it's a little newer.
It's newer, and I think they're a little more sensitive about it.
No language barrier to protect you.
No,
From what I understand,
assuming no one's listening to this.
You want it, from what I understood, this is all through the trees. You hear rumors. Your Halo 4 was going to be a match 3 where you played Cortana, right?
Yeah, and exactly, and it's amazing how rumors get out, but I don't think we have
they
to
found
do
the hard drive of the mocap of the matching.
Oh
no,
no,
they did it.
Yeah, man,
that's fascinating stuff.
Free to play Halo. That's what I wanted, man. No,
you're visionary.